Well, welcome to our first ever Defen talk show podcast combo. I don't know how it's going to work out, we'll see, but we've got an awesome guest, Mr. Colin Fleming. Hello, Colin. We're going to do a bit of mic swapping here, by the way, so just watch out for that.
I'll be leaning in an intimate fashion here while I'm talking, yeah.
Leaning in? Okay, Colin.
I'll grab it, all right. Who has the mic is speaking,
yeah,
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's good to be here, thanks.
Right, we've got to give Vijay a chance to speak now. I know he probably has lost his tongue a little bit in front of the devil, that is cursive, but let's just give him a try.
Yeah, so this is going to be a proper, a clash of religious beliefs, I would say. So Colin is the creator of cursive, obviously, and I'm
to shake hands with him. Let's just see that happen. I mean, like Hillary and Donald, you know. Let's see it happen.
No, so I'm obviously I'm a devout Emacs user. So well, let's not talk about Emacs today. Let's talk about a bit more about cursive. So you're coming all the way from New Zealand, and this is your how many number of EuroClojures have you been, and how is Bratislava treating you?
So it's the third EuroClojure I've been to. I've been to the last two. I was in Barcelona last year and in Krakow the year before that. And Bratislava's been great. I actually only arrived right before the conference started yesterday, so I've only seen the interior of the pub last night and the interior of the venue here, basically. But I'm sure Bratislava is lovely. People tell me it's very nice. So but I just haven't seen very much of it yet. But the conference has been great. I mean, I really like the Clojure conferences. They're always a small, sort of friendly crowd. Because I've been to quite a few of them now. I've been to the Conj and EuroClojure a couple of times, and Clojure West. So you meet a lot of the same people, and it's like being in my lounge at home with some mates at this stage. So it's great. I mean, I always really enjoy coming to them. They're a very friendly crowd, and yeah, they're really good.
So did you fly all the way here in one stop? Did you like take one stop, then you're going to go straight back tomorrow or the day after? Or what's your plan in Europe?
No, so I have actually done that a couple of times at the US conferences, and from New Zealand it's definitely quite a beating. It's around a 24-hour trip from New Zealand to the US, and it's only a 6-hour time difference, but it's still quite difficult, and it's in the wrong direction, the jet lag, when you're going to the States. No, but I was actually already in Europe, so my wife is Spanish, so I spend a bunch of time in Europe every year, so our daughter can hang out with the in-laws. So yes, I wouldn't have come from New Zealand just for EuroClojure, but when I was in Europe, it's it's doable, that's right. And I'm going to the Conj from Europe as well, even though it's still quite a long trip. It's about half as long as from New Zealand, and also about half the cost. So I'll definitely be looking forward to that as well.
All right. Maybe we'll give the Emacs.
Yes. So I'm pretty sure you keep writing cursive code in Emacs, so you don't need to say it on the camera anyway. So I was wondering, so what's your? I know that you have an unsession plan tonight about cursive, and a little bit about that. If you can tell, what are you planning to do in that one? And also maybe as a bonus question, what are your plans for cursive? I mean, what are you working on right now? So that'll be great as well. Yeah.
So the Unsession is tonight at 9:00. So I've done Unsessions at a couple of previous conferences. I think this is the first time they've done one at EuroClojure, but they do them as pretty standard in the US conferences. And the Unsessions are always a lot of fun. So I haven't prepared a huge amount. What I basically do is I get up and I start demoing things and randomly until people ask me questions, and then I answer the questions, and then it sort of goes from there. So it's always very informal. So definitely if people are interested, they have the questions they want answered, or they just want to see what it's all about, and definitely come along. It's I really like them because it's a much smaller, it's a very different experience to speaking at a conference, because you can sort of interact with everyone, and it's very much question driven. So, and you can talk about a lot more about things than just the technical aspects, like which is good. In terms of
when is your actual? I know this is not going to be live, so it doesn't really matter. We can cut this out. But when is your actual Unsession?
It's at 9:00 tonight.
9:00.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, in terms of what I'm working on, I mean, I always have a ton of stuff planned for cursive, and I never have enough time to work on it. So I haven't been working on cursive as much as I would like the last couple of months, but I'm about to start getting more into it again. Clojure script support is probably the top thing on my list. So Cursive already has pretty good Clojure script support, but a lot of stuff around starting the REPLs. So I've been talking to Bruce Hellman and also to Antonin Hildebrandt here at the Conch, who wrote DRAC and CLJS dev tools. So I'd like to speak to both of them about integrating Figwheel and all the dev tool stuff into Cursive, because it all works very well, but getting it set up can be quite difficult. So if I can have a one-click Clojure script REPL, I think that would be very attractive to a lot of people. Yeah. So I need to improve CLJC support, and then I always have a ton of stuff to do. I'd like to add boot support, for example. That's quite difficult because of the nature of boot, but it's definitely becoming more and more important, so I'm going to need to do something quite soon. And other than that, just fixing bugs, new stuff. Spec support will be coming up sometime soon. What's that?
1.9.
1.9, right. Yeah, so I've added a bunch of support for a lot of the namespace keyword stuff that's going to be required for Spec. But Spec has a lot of scope to actually provide good editor support, I think. So marking errors in the editor when things don't conform to specs, especially around the macro specs, things like that, when people expect a function and Cursive can see that the spec is expecting an int and you've passed a string, something like that. So all of that should be doable, I think. And even just, what's that, sorry? Yeah, exactly. And just showing basically the specs and parameter pop-ups and things like that in the documentation, all of that I think will be very useful.
Okay, I think that's going to be very exciting for us Cursive devotees to look forward to. But I noticed on the Clojure mailing group, there's been a bit of conversation recently about types and with the spec stuff coming up, and you've had a little chat about Kotlin and things like that, and I know you've been advocating that kind of, let's say, more typed stuff around the stuff at the interfaces between Clojure and Java. Maybe could you give us like 2 minutes on why you're advocating for that? Because I think it's quite interesting, because clearly if you're all Clojure, then spec does the job for that. But where you've got this interop interface, where you're mining that essentially with Cursive, then I guess it's a tougher job. So maybe you could just give us 2 minutes on that. That would be really good.
Sure. So I'm not sure I can do it justice in 2 minutes.
Right. We've got a bit of time. It's okay.
Yeah. It's a complicated topic, and I think. So I haven't fully worked out exactly why Cursive suffers so badly from null pointer exceptions, because when I talk to Clojure developers, they pretty much fall into two quite extreme camps, who are either I never see null pointer exceptions, or I see them all the time and they ruin my life. Yeah. And I'm definitely in the second camp, and I haven't quite figured out. So you're right, the Cursive basically is almost all API surface. I mean, there's almost nothing I do in Cursive that doesn't call into IntelliJ, which is Java, obviously, at some point. And so what the thing that Kotlin does really, really nicely is that because Kotlin allows you to express whether a type can be null or not, if you're assigning a value that comes back from Java to a not nullable variable, it will automatically insert an assertion at that point. So as soon as a value is not what you expect, you'll get an exception. So Spec does actually allow you to do that, but the problem is you have to do it all the way around your API boundary, and in my case, that's half the application. So I'm actually very excited about Spec. I mean, it's an amazing system, but it's a tool like any other, and it works better in some cases than in others. And I think particularly the fact that Spec relies on generative testing to increase the confidence you have in your functions, I can't really use that so much because all of my code talks to IntelliJ, and the generative testing aspect doesn't work so well. And I guess it's not really surprising that Kotlin works well for my use case, because it's developed by JetBrains, and so their use case is exactly my use case, and it does work very nicely for that. I still don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want to write all of Cursive in Kotlin. I'd much rather be using Clojure, and I'm kind of sad that I don't have a better solution for this yet. So I'm sort of casting around, and I've actually had some interesting conversations with people here at the conference. I spoke to David Nolan about it a couple of weeks ago as well. So I have some ideas there that are not fully developed yet, and I'm hopeful that I can come up with something that is at least sort of 90% Clojure-like, but maybe helps me fix this problem. But I don't fully know what it's going to look like yet.
So maybe some kind of library or something around that layer, maybe something like that?
Yeah, possibly. Some sort of static analysis ahead of time, maybe. The problem is that to automatically insert the assertions where you need them, it needs some kind of integration with the compiler. So if I were using Spec, I would have to say, I want all these functions to be instrumented at runtime, and you pay quite a reasonable sort of cost for that. Obviously, the null checks that Kotlin inserts also impose a runtime cost, but assuming that the assertion is correct, Hotspot should completely optimize that away. A spec will probably have a slightly more overhead. It should still be pretty efficient, I think. But the main thing is that I have to annotate all the functions manually, saying, I want runtime checks at these and these and these points, whereas with Kotlin it just happens magically. But for that to happen, you need some kind of integration with the compiler.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I think it's been an amazing first ever episode of the Deaf and Talk Show stroke podcast. I don't know if you want to add some final remarks to Colin?
Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us, and this has been a pretty exciting time for us, I think. And we'd really love to have you on the show, on the podcast at some time, so we can go deeper into what you're working on, and perhaps spread the news around a bit about Cursive and tell people that, it's going to be very difficult for me, honestly, but you never know, so we'll try that out. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll just drop him off for one show, okay? We'll just have a private conversation, Colin, okay? No problem. Well, thanks very much.
Okay.
It's been really fantastic stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks
Cheers,
very
Colin.
much, guys. It's been a pleasure.